We may be shocked to discover the tenuous grip we have on reality, though reality seems so real. The existence of the number 2 is not called into question. You apply the concept of 2 daily with little controversy. You assume that 2 exists, that is, until I ask you the right questions. Indeed, my questions are a form of detector, a detector designed to detect non-physical versus physical, or functional versus structural entities. The first question is, show me 2. You might think, that's easy, and hold up 2 fingers. If you have children, then you'll recall tiny toddler fingers held up in the V sign to signify 2. But those are not 2. Those are fingers. Well, you might grab a piece of paper and a pen and write the word 2 and the numeral 2. However, those are still not 2. Those are 2-dimensional graphical representations or symbols that represent 2. My detector returns a negative. No 2 detected. Only some strange residue. I can intensify my illustration by using my detector to observe another entity, another type of entity, a cat. So I ask you to show me a cat. You reach down and you pick up Fluffy, who was sleeping curled around your ankle. She yawns and settles into her new position on your lap. Now my illustration here is only a picture of a cat, but for argument's sake, let's pretend it's an actual cat. My detector goes nuts and returns an affirmative result, cat detected. So my detector has, in the case of the cat, had a positive result. But in the case of 2, it detects only a hint or a residue of 2. It's symbols. Carrying the idea further, we see that 2 has a reality that crosses dimensions. What I mean is, you know 2. You can feel 2 in your bones, so you understand 2 as a feeling. Then we see that 2 also has a reality in the world of line and angle, in the representation of its symbols. Frustrated, you exclaim that you know what 2 is. It's greater than 1 and less than 3, and that if you stand at 0 on a number line, 2 is that way. Well, that way is a direction relative to 0 on a number line. So we see that 2 has a relative reality. It is a position in space relative to the position of other functional entities. But still, we cannot find 2 itself. You can detect cat. You can detect XY, 11XY. You can detect vase or plate or sofa, but you cannot, for the life of you, detect 2. 2 appears to be a ghost. We can feel 2 in our bones, which is the source of our frustration. We can apply the concept or structure of 2 to a bowl of fruit, selecting 2 cherries, but we cannot find 2 itself. We detect 2's artifacts, which would suggest that 2 does indeed exist. However, we cannot touch or see it. Comparing the structural entity, the cat, to the functional one, number 2, we notice that they share certain characteristics, but not others. Both cat and two have a counterpart within the dimension of our feelings or emotions. If you described what cat feels like, you might say soft, tickly, cuddly. You might use words like sneaky or fearless. In describing your feeling of two, you may say birthday cake, referring to your first remembered birthday party when you turned 2. You may become very abstract in your description, saying 2 feels like satisfaction, a reference to the times you and your only sister had to share, so 2 has come to mean enough to go around. This dimension can become very complex as all your physical senses are brought to bear in feeling cat or 2. For example, you may say cat is a smell, representing cat by the odor of a litter box. We know what the two-dimensional symbols are for both these entities, with variations depending on what language we speak. When we filter out all our subjective symbols and cultural symbols, we are left with, I guess, what could be called rock bed symbols, or maybe archetypes, that are understood by all people in all times across all cultures. These are very powerful simply by virtue of the psychic attention paid to them over a span of millennia. We can represent cat in a relative sense by saying not dog, not cow, not chair. Similarly, we can represent 2 by saying not 3, not 5. Or if we are standing at 0 on a number line, we can say that 2 is that way, which might be left or right, depending on which way you are facing. Then finally, there is the physical object. We can easily detect the physical cat, but cannot, for the life of us, detect the physical object too. We do not quibble about whether 2 exists. We take it on faith. We dispense with the controversy for the sake of expediency. We accept the symbols. We utilize the concepts to our advantage. We understand that the concept of 2 is a non-physical helper. We may never come face to face with 2, only its symbols. But we are at peace with this. We do not make graven images to 2. We just accept that 2 helps us navigate our world, helps us survive. We do not look upon 2 with scorn and dismiss its importance and say that because it is a ghost, it does not exist. So, to detect ghosts like 2, one must use the appropriate detector. We must soften our vision and look at things in a different way, thereby overriding our inferences. Did I miss anything here? Please let me know. Thanks for listening.